You don't remember when the noise started. It's just there now, constant, mechanical, pressing against your skull. The rotor blades chop the air into hard, rhythmic pulses. Gravel scrapes under your boots as you drag him, his weight uneven, his blood slick against your gloves. The pilot is shouting. You can see his mouth moving, wide, urgent. The words don't reach you. The sound is swallowed by the machine above you, by the gunfire cracking somewhere behind the ridge, closer than before, closer than it should be. You adjust your grip under his arms. He groans, barely conscious, already turning into dead weight. Not yet, but close enough that your body knows the difference. You keep moving. You were not recruited. You were selected. A line in a report, a flag in a system scanning for traits no one admits they want. Stress tolerance beyond acceptable limits. Emotional detachment in controlled environments. Compliance under ambiguous authority. Expendable under pressure. You sat in a room held at a precise 18 degrees Celsius, a man across from you sliding a document forward with no insignia and no explanation. Dense paragraphs designed not to be read. You signed it anyway. No one asked if you understood. No one needed to. The first months dissolved before you realized they existed. Sleep came in fragments, 12 minutes, 23, sometimes 40 if the schedule allowed. You learned to fall unconscious on command, to wake without hesitation. Food arrived in sealed packs, 2,400 calories measured and adjusted. You ate because it was required, not because you were hungry. Taste faded. You were given a number. Names were inefficient. Every morning began with coordinates, weather, probabilities calculated to 2 decimal places. Every briefing ended the same way. No recovery if compromised. The first time it sounded like a warning. By the 10th, it was punctuation. You advanced because you didn't fail. Not because you succeeded, but because you stayed within acceptable margins. Year 1, you observed. Year 2, you acted in small ways. Year 3, you made decisions that carried weight you couldn't undo. Language shifted around you. Minimize collateral. Maintain deniability. Proceed within operational tolerance. You learned to interpret silence as approval. You learned how to adjust reports without changing facts, shaping outcomes without lying. Creative compliance became instinct. You survived by anticipating what the system wanted before it spoke. By year 5, survival stopped feeling like effort. It became continuity. Conversations outside the system shrank, then disappeared. Messages went unanswered, then stopped coming. You told yourself it was temporary, but the schedule filled every space. There was always another mission, another briefing, another set of coordinates. Time stopped existing as days or weeks. It became a sequence. Mission 143. Mission 144. Mission 145. Each one blending into the next, distinguished only by minor variations in terrain and temperature. Extraction zones were supposed to be controlled. That was the premise. Insert, complete, move, extract. The system accounted for variables, calculated risk, defined where safety would exist. This time it was wrong. The satellite feed had shown minimal movement, a threat escalation rating of 0.18. Low. Acceptable. Now the zone was saturated with movement that didn't align with prediction. Too many hostiles, positioned in ways the model hadn't accounted for. The helicopter hovered lower than it should, compensating against instability. The rope dropped, swaying. The window narrowed. You dragged him forward, arms burning, not just from effort but from the cost of continuing. He wasn't supposed to be injured. None of this was supposed to happen. His blood marked the gravel behind you in uneven patterns your mind registered without permission. Gunfire cracked closer. Within 50 meters. You didn't need to confirm. The pilot leaned out, gesturing sharply. Faster. Leave him. You had seen those gestures before. You understood them completely. You reached the edge of the extraction point. The helicopter dipped, barely stable. The rope hung within reach. You looked down at him. His eyes were open but unfocused, his lips moving without sound. It didn't matter. You already knew what would be said, or what you needed it to be. Your mind calculated automatically. 3 meters to the rope. Load capacity exceeded with both. Less than 20 seconds before contact. Probability of extraction with both, negligible. With one, marginal, but real. You didn't think in words. Only numbers. For a fraction of a second, something resisted. Not a thought, not even a feeling in the way you remembered feelings, just a delay where your body didn't immediately comply. You felt his weight in your hands, the warmth of his blood through your gloves. It anchored you. It slowed you. Then the gunfire shifted closer, and the moment ended. You let go. The motion was small, almost nothing. His weight transferred to the ground. Resistance, then absence. You stepped forward, grabbed the rope, and climbed. The helicopter rose. The ground disappeared. You did not look down. The debrief was concise. Mission outcome, partially successful. Primary objective, achieved. Secondary asset, lost. Cause, unforeseen escalation. Satellite discrepancy under review. You delivered your report with precise timing and measured distances. There was no space for hesitation in the documentation. It wasn't asked for. It wasn't recorded. They reviewed the data, nodded, approved. You were promoted. Years passed. Your responsibilities increased. You no longer executed missions, you authorized them. You reviewed probabilities, adjusted variables, signed off on risks that were no longer yours to carry physically. The same phrases repeated, now in your voice. No recovery if compromised. You said it without emphasis. The weight remained, but it changed. It was no longer in your arms. It settled somewhere quieter, persistent but unobtrusive, surfacing only in the gaps between tasks, in the seconds before sleep. You felt it in your hands. You tried to recall his name. It came slowly, delayed, like accessing a file buried deep in storage. You never said it out loud. There was no place for it. By year 10, you were removed from the field entirely. Your body had been used, optimized, and replaced in function. You returned to controlled rooms, to screens and data, to the same 18 degrees Celsius environment where it had begun. You sat across from others, sliding documents forward. They signed. You didn't ask if they understood. You watched operations unfold through feeds and overlays. Units moved across maps, probabilities updating in real time. You saw the moment when predictions failed. You saw the same scenario repeat, with different terrain, different variables, identical structure. A figure dragging another across a surface you couldn't feel. The posture familiar. The timing exact. You knew how it would end before it did. The system didn't pause. It didn't reflect. It processed. By year 15, you were retired. Not publicly, not ceremonially. Just removed. Access reduced, then eliminated. Your number archived. You left with a collection of objects that held no meaning. Outside air felt inconsistent, unregulated. Time lost its structure. Conversations became difficult. People spoke in narratives instead of data, asked questions without parameters. You answered, but it didn't align. At night, the weight returned exactly as it had been. Your hands remembered with precision your mind could not erase. Somewhere, the system continued. Another room at 18 degrees Celsius. Another document. Another signature. Another number assigned. Another extraction calculated. Another probability deemed acceptable. The same sentence repeated. No recovery if compromised. You were not there to see it. You didn't need to be. The sequence was stable. It never depended on you. The noise returns sometimes, not external, just an echo. Rotor blades. Gunfire. A voice you can't hear. A moment that resolves the same way every time. You let go. And the system continues exactly as designed.